You're watching Behavior Bits.
Thank you for watching Behavior Bits, brought to you by Twin Rivers Unified School District. This video is going to be covering functions of behavior, how to determine why your child may be engaging in challenging behavior. The purpose of this training video is to help determine why your child may be engaging in challenging behaviors. Once we determine the why, then we can look further at what steps are needed to change this challenging behavior into a more desired behavior. To make the most of this training, I would like you to think about one challenging behavior that you may be dealing with at home. Once you've selected, go ahead and write this down. As we move through the next few slides, I want you to be thinking about the behavior that you chose. Are you able to identify the function of this behavior and what steps are going to be needed moving forward? I want to start by outlining the four main functions of behavior. One way to remember these functions is everyone eats. So first we have escape. Does the behavior result in getting out of something undesired, such as maybe homework or chores? Attention. Does the behavior result in some form of attention? This could be positive attention or negative attention. It may not matter. Next, we have tangible. Does the behavior result in gaining access to a preferred item? This could be things like toys or food. And last, we have sensory. Does this behavior feel good? This could be scratching an itch or maybe rubbing your temples when you have a headache. Now that we have outlined the four main functions of behavior, you may be asking yourself, okay, but how do I determine the function? This part may take some time because we need to look at the data. So we do this by collecting our ABCs. All this means is we are going to be looking at what happens directly before and directly after the challenging behavior occurs. This information is going to give us a better sense as to why they may be engaging in this behavior. Let's go ahead and practice together by breaking down the following example. You are working with your child on their math homework. The student just got home and is playing on their iPad. You tell them that they need to start homework in 20 minutes. When 20 minutes is up, you remove their iPad and present the math work. Your child begins screaming, "No, I'm not doing the math work," and crying. You respond, "Okay, you can have a few more minutes on the iPad." The child then gets the preferred item back for additional time. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and break it down by our ABCs. So in red, you can see what happens directly before the challenging behavior occurs, which is removing their iPad and presenting the math work. In blue is the challenging behavior that we want to change. And in green is what happens directly after the behavior has occurred, which is gaining access to the preferred item. So now that we have our ABCs, we need to ask ourselves, how is this behavior paying off for my child? We can then look back at our four functions of behavior: escape, attention, tangibles, and sensory. From this example, we know that by engaging in challenging behavior, it resulted in gaining access to more time on a preferred item. So based on this, we can reliably assume or say that the function of this behavior is access to tangibles. Let's take a look at one more example. Your child was hungry and went to the kitchen to make a sandwich. When you walk into the kitchen, you notice your child left a huge mess. There are crumbs on the counter, dishes in the sink, and even peanut butter marks on the countertop. You then tell your child, "There is a mess in the kitchen. You need to come clean up after yourself." Your child does not respond, so a few minutes later, you end up cleaning the mess yourself. So remember, the first thing we want to do is break this down by our ABCs. So in red, you can see what happens directly before the challenging behavior, which is you prompt your child to come clean up their mess. In blue is the challenging behavior we want to change, and green is what happens directly after the behavior occurred, which is you end up cleaning the mess yourself. So let's go ahead and break it down further. Now that we have our ABCs, we need to ask ourselves, how is this behavior paying off for my child? We can then look back at our 4 functions of behavior. Remember, we have escape, attention, tangibles, and sensory. From this example, we know that by engaging in challenging behavior, which was ignoring the demand that was placed, resulted in escaping from that non-preferred demand or task, which was cleaning up. So based on this, we can reliably assume or say that the function of this behavior is escape. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at attention as a function of behavior. So the antecedent here, or the first thing that occurs, is a nonverbal child is learning how to write their name, but has difficulty holding their pencil and often needs prompting. Parent presents a first then, and then leaves the room to complete the dishes. The behavior is pounding loudly on the table, which results in the consequence of the parent coming back into the room and asking, "What's wrong?" In this example, pounding on the desk was the child's way of gaining attention and getting the parent's help with work. When working with a nonverbal child, it would be beneficial to find appropriate ways to gain your attention. This might be ringing a bell, exchanging an icon, or maybe tapping on your shoulder. The last function I want us to look at is sensory. This means the behavior is occurring because it feels good to the individual. So in this example, the antecedent or first thing that occurs is a child is sitting on the couch by themselves watching their favorite TV show. The behavior is the child begins to flap their hands and rock the body on the couch. The consequence here may be harder for us to observe. The show continues and they aren't escaping or gaining any form of attention. So here the key is that it serves the function to regulate some type of sensory need. All right, so now that we know the function, what do we need to do next? The goal is for us to decrease that challenging behavior. First, we need to identify what is the appropriate replacement behavior. Is it asking for a break, requesting more time, asking for your help? You really just want to identify what you want your child to be doing instead. Once that is identified, only provide reinforcement or rewards for engaging in that appropriate behavior. You no longer want to allow your child to escape demands or gain access to preferred items by engaging in challenging behavior. Instead, when they engage in these challenging behaviors, you can try to ignore or prompt the appropriate behavior. Remember, it's going to get worse before it gets better. This is because the challenging behavior is no longer paying off for your child. Think about it this way. You know that when you go to a vending machine and put money in, that you will then receive a bag of chips or soda. But let's say one day you put money into the machine and it doesn't work. It just eats your money. You may then start by pushing the buttons a lot, hitting the machine, shaking it, or even trying to kick it. Eventually, though, you give up and you walk away from the vending machine. This is going to be the same for your child's behavior. Something that has once worked for them is no longer working. So we need to remember that we should be patient, stay consistent, we're not going to give in to their challenging behavior, and always reinforce them for the engaging in more desired behaviors. I want to end by going back to the original example I asked you to be thinking about at the beginning of this training. We hope this training has allowed you to be able to outline your ABCs to determine the function and what steps are going to be needed to decrease that challenging behavior. Remember that behavior serves 4 main functions: escape, attention, tangibles, and sensory. Once we've identified the function, we can then work at increasing more desired behaviors.
Thanks for watching Behavior Bits.